So many people over the last few years have made the mistake of moving into Lake Oswego and unfortunately picking the wrong neighborhood. But with the proper education, I want to make sure today that you can make the correct decision when moving to Lake Oswego and purchasing in a neighborhood that not only you and your family will enjoy, but financially it will be a great decision for you in the future. All right, so starting off, we find ourselves on the south side of Lake Oswego in the Palisades neighborhood. Now, this is one of the larger neighborhoods in Lake Oswego, and it includes a wide variety of different styles of homes. Many of these were built out in the 50s through 70s and have been updated since. And actually, what we've seen over the last few years is the neighborhood has been targeted by some of the local builders. So you're seeing a lot of that infill development resulting in $2+ million brand new homes. What I love about the neighborhood is you have these nice wide streets behind. You'll see some cars actually parked on this one because we, believe it or not, are just right across the street from Lake Ridge High School here in the background. And we are also adjacent to the Lake Oswego Municipal Course, which is the par 3 golf course here in Lake Oswego. If you haven't tried that, I definitely recommend it. You can't do it right now, but you will very soon. They're redeveloping that whole area into an aquatic center. So we'll have some of the top-notch pool facilities in the local area available to the community starting, I believe, later this year. We'll see if they hit that timing. And then they've redeveloped the municipal course into a par 3 9-hole course as well. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. But that just goes to show the investment in the overall community. And I think it is a good marker for future appreciation potential within this Palisades neighborhood. Now, Palisades is not walkable in the traditional sense that some of the other neighborhoods on today's list are. We don't have the local amenities such as Whole Foods, Starbucks, things like that that you can just roll out of bed and walk to. But what you do have are the nice walkable streets, more of a family feel overall in the neighborhood. Plus you've got Green Tree Community Pool, centrally located for members of just this neighborhood. And then parks such as Cook's Butte, which offers beautiful views of the surrounding area and a nice little ridge hike for you to enjoy. Now, if you do commute, especially out 217 or I-5, and you are targeting this neighborhood, then I would add at least an additional 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the time of day, for you to actually get to the freeway. So it's not the most accessible in terms of amenities such as like Costco, Target, or some of the big box retailers. But some people really do like that insulation because it provides for a nice, quiet neighborhood. Now, for schools, of course, this neighborhood feeds into Lake Ridge High School. I mean, it would be kind of inconvenient if it didn't, since we were just right across the street from many of the homes. But let's start with elementaries because you're going to be either looking at West Ridge or Highlands, both fantastic options, and we go over more in depth in the channel, as well as you can use fantastic resources such as Greater Schools or niche.com, as I have to be careful about what we say about specific schools. Though I will say the middle school is brand new. It's practically like a college campus and has some of the nicest amenities in the area, in my opinion. Palisades is one of the more affordable Lake Oswego neighborhoods. Just really in general, if you're on the south side of the lake, you're going to enjoy a home cost of approximately 10 to 20% less than the north side. And we could get into that in the future of why that is. But I will say over the last 12 months, we've seen probably the most amount of appreciation in the Palisades neighborhood with the amount of infill development going on currently. Because of that development, we're seeing a wide range of property resale prices, anywhere down to $640 all the way up to $2.3 million. And you can expect an average sale price of about $1.1 million or $410 per foot. I will say though, it is summer of 2024 and going into the fall and winter, I expect you might get some good deals. There are currently 30 active listings on the market with only 5 pending currently and 50 total sales over the last 12 months. What that tells me is we have anywhere from 5 to 6 months of supply in this neighborhood currently. So we're seeing that days on market slowly increase. Over the last 12 months, it was actually 37 days on market on average, which is a huge rise from those post-COVID days. And before we head to the next neighborhood, I do want to just stop and point out that most of the neighborhood has access to the lake via the Palisades Park Lake easement. Now, this easement, in terms of the overall desirability of easements in Lake Oswego, probably not the most in my opinion, just due to the actual elevation change you have from being on the top of the south side of the lake all the way down to lake level. There are a fair amount of stairs down, and boat slips and amenities aren't going to be as comparable to some of the others that we'll see over on the north side of the lake. And if lake easements are at the top of your list, let me know in the comments below if you think maybe doing a whole video just outlining all the pros and cons of each lake easement might be useful to you in the future. Now, next up on the list, we find ourselves in Lake Oswego's First Edition neighborhood. I'm actually standing in Rossman Park, right down in the heart of First Edition, near all the downtown Lake Oswego amenities, which makes this neighborhood so special. The neighborhood was originally established for many of the employees of the original iron company that incorporated Lake Oswego back in the 1800s. So many of the original cottages are still here, although we have seen developers target these, as this neighborhood was probably one of the first in all of Lake Oswego to experience some of that infill development that has taken shape across the whole city. One thing that makes First Edition pretty unique, in my opinion, is the diversity of options you have when looking in the neighborhood. Not only do you have single family, but you actually have attached homes. You have a series of townhomes behind me that go for anywhere between 1.4 and 1.6 million. And then you have condos being developed throughout the whole neighborhood. And as you go towards the downtown corridor, it seems like the density increases. Whereas if you go towards the park on the north side, you get more of your single family homes on the standard 50 by 120 lots. Because of that density, First Edition is one of the, I would say, tighter of the neighborhoods. Some people love that community feel. Adding to it are zoning requirements. So if you were to build a brand new house in First Edition, you actually have to have that traditional front porch patio that you might sit out, enjoy, say hello to neighbors. And then of course, another attribute that makes the neighborhood unique is you have alleyways running north to south in each of the neighborhoods. So many of the garages are actually facing the alleys, which are paved in gravel, and that's where you take out your trash and the actual city sewer goes underneath instead of the actual street. And people do love this neighborhood for, of course, the walkability. You've probably seen on a map, we're close to many of the downtown amenities, shops, restaurants, and more. But why I like it is from a young family perspective, you're close to the best elementary in all of Lake Oswego by many metrics, and that's Forest Hills Elementary. The facility itself is on the older side, but they do plan a complete redevelopment of this site within the next couple years. In addition to the school, you have the city library, which is just up the street on 4th Ave, which makes a great retreat on a hot day like this to get inside and find a few books or movies for the family. And if you do have to commute, that may not be a problem because living in First Edition, you do have a few more access options, including taking Highway 43 north to Portland and avoiding I-5, which is really nice most hours of the day. But if you do need to go I-5, there is a back way up through the Forest Highlands neighborhood where you can hop on Terwilliger, hit I-5 in just a matter of minutes, really. And then you're also not too far from the I-5-217 interchange on the other side of town. Now, because of the popularity of this neighborhood, inventory is actually still very low with only 3 active listings, 2 pending. And you'll see over the course of the last 12 months, there's been 18 sales in the MLS, though 6 have traded off market in addition to those 18. And my team was lucky enough to be on the side of half of those. But with limited inventory, the sales prices have remained higher. The average sale price over the last 12 months has been just over 1.5 million or $630 per foot. Now, those numbers are a little bit deceiving because what I typically see is pricing on either spectrum of 1.5. It seems that either you have an original First Edition house for 1.5 or less. For example, a teardown in the neighborhood would go anywhere right now from 750 to 850, depending on the location of the lot. For example, a corner lot like this one, believe it or not, if you didn't have the trees, would have beautiful southern exposure. Those tend to net a higher amount because you do have that sun exposure as well as an additional city setback, which makes the lots seem bigger. And then on the other end of the spectrum, if one of those lots were purchased and developed by a local builder, you'd expect resale to be anywhere from the low 2s all the way up to $3 million, depending on the square footage, features, and build quality. And then if you like this location, you love the walkability, but you feel maybe it's a little too urban or claustrophobic for you, the adjacent Forest Hills neighborhood is practically an extension of First Edition in a lot of ways, but you get much larger lot sizes. For example, we just sold a property over at 1122 Bayberry for just over $2 million with a 14,000 square foot lot. And an additional benefit of buying over in Forest Hills is you get to enjoy the Forest Hills lake easement, which was just completely remodeled. And I would say is probably one of the top lake easements on the entire lake, in my opinion. Next up, we find ourselves just across A Avenue in Lake Oswego's Evergreen neighborhood. This is personally one of my favorites, and if I was in the market, probably the one I would target, to be honest. And that's for a couple prime reasons. First, you have the walkability that you enjoy in First Edition with slightly larger lot sizes. On average in this neighborhood, I would say you would find lot sizes anywhere from 8 to 12,000 square feet versus the 6,000 square feet across A Ave over in First Edition. And what that lends itself to is you have a whole host of different style of homes in the neighborhood, dating all the way back to the 1930s to present day, where you see this brand new home right behind me that just went pending for over $2.8 million. In this neighborhood, there is a neighborhood committee, so they do have some influence over the new construction that goes in. So you tend to see different design elements in this neighborhood, making it feel a little bit more cottagey than some of the other neighboring neighborhoods. And another key reason why I love the neighborhood is you have the Lakewood Bay easement. It's a very family-friendly easement right on Lakewood Bay, which is a subsection of the actual lake. So if you're interested in learning more about that, then yeah, definitely check out our lake tour where we go out on the boat and give you that first-person perspective of everything to do with the actual lake. So like First Edition, this whole neighborhood feeds into Forest Hills Elementary, Lake Oswego Junior High, and of course Lake Oswego High School. So you can't go wrong with schools. And if you are looking for a private school option, Evergreen is also home to Our Lady of the Lake Catholic Church and their K-8 private school option there. In addition to the Catholic Church, Evergreen is also home to a Presbyterian church, as well as the Lake Oswego Historical Society, which is just across the street. Another great reason to buy in Evergreen is the proximity to the downtown Lake Oswego Village, which is home to, of course, some of the best restaurants in Lake Oswego, a lot of the shops, and Millennium Park, which hosts the weekly Saturday market. So if you're into getting your fruits and vegetables fresh from local farmers at an amazing cost, then you definitely want to check that out. And what better way to just walk from your home. Now, there does come a cost to the proximity you get to all of the Lake Oswego amenities, and of course those larger lots, with an average sale price in the Evergreen neighborhood coming in just above $1.6 million over the last 12 months. It's a little bit smaller of a neighborhood too, so we've only seen 15 sales, 3 of which were off market, and those ranged from anywhere from $750 all the way up to $3.8 million. So a wide variety right there in terms of what you can get in the neighborhood. And unfortunately, there's only one available listing currently on the market, but like I said, if this happens to be on the top of your list, some do trade off market, so you definitely want to reach out just so you're in the know about what's coming up. And I did forget to mention, even though the average sale price is a little bit higher, nearing that 1.6 million than First Edition, the average price per foot is lower, closer to $600 a foot, primarily because the homes you would expect to buy in Evergreen are slightly larger due to the larger lot sizes. So you get a little bit more for your money with all the walkability First Edition has, lake easement, and larger lots. All right, next up, we find ourselves in Westlake Park. This is in the heart of Lake Oswego's Westlake neighborhood, which is one of the most desirable neighborhoods for those looking for a more suburban feel. Westlake is located on the eastern side of Lake Oswego, right adjacent to I-5 and 217. So it's a prime spot if you are commuting or you just like that easy freeway access to get to Portland or Beaverton. The entire neighborhood was developed in the late 80s, early 90s, and because of that reason, has a very consistent feel throughout. You've got sidewalks, street lamps, and of course parks, giving it more of a master plan community feel than the rest of Lake Oswego. With this park being at the center of the community, it really provides a local gathering place for not only the kids, but the adults. Behind me, that's where they host all the Little League games, soccer practice, and even summer concert series for the whole family to gather. In addition to the fields, you also have some basketball hoops, tennis courts, Some of the neighborhood pockets actually have swimming pools. And then over on the other side of the park, you do have your actual play structure, which is conveniently shaded for days exactly like this. All right, and then in terms of houses, what you'll see in Westlake, as you'll see right behind me, are some pretty traditional style homes. Many have been updated over the last 30 years. Some are still in the original condition. But overall, it's one of the more affordable parts of Lake Oswego. So there's definitely room to run if you buy a house and then want to upgrade it. There are currently only 2 listings available in the entire neighborhood, 4 pending. And then over the last 12 months, there's been 22 sales with an average price point of around $1.2 million or just under $400 price per foot. You'll find that lot sizes range from anywhere from 8,000 all the way up to 16,000, but more commonly, you're probably gonna find one with a more or less 10,000 square foot lot in the neighborhood. I do like it because you have these quiet streets. There are a lot of cul-de-sacs and of course sidewalks. All in all, making it one of the more family-friendly neighborhoods in Lake Oswego. The whole neighborhood is fairly flat and pretty accessible. There's a couple restaurants right within Westlake that you can walk to, but just across Cruise, you have the entire Cruiseway Business Park, as well as the Cruise Village Mall and Shopping Center with tons of good restaurants and of course, local amenity shops, things like that. Then in terms of schools, for elementary over here, most of the neighborhood actually feeds into Lake Grove Elementary. Some of the neighborhood feeds into Oak Creek. So that's one major distinction that you're gonna wanna pay attention to. Oak Creek is actually walkable for many of these homes, whereas Lake Grove, there is some drama going around that school in terms of if the city buys it and turns it into more of a community center. So make sure to pay attention to what's going on there with the elementary schools. In terms of the middle school and high school, it feeds into Lake Oswego, and the proximity to that I-5-217 makes it a great option if your kids do go to various other private schools that are accessible via the freeways. All right, and then last but not least, we find ourselves in Lake Oswego's Forest Highlands neighborhood. I'm actually standing in a relatively new city park. This is Woodmont Nature Park. You can see behind me, there are very natural trails, some grasslands. A lot of the native species of plants here in Lake Oswego are exhibited further into the park, and it makes it a great spot for the local neighborhood to walk, enjoy, take your dog out, play with your kids, things like that. All in all, believe it or not, this neighborhood is not known for being the most walkable neighborhood. So if you're into that sort of thing, probably not the right fit. And that is because you have a much larger average lot size here, probably about a ½ acre plus actually, which lends itself to a much more estate-like feeling with higher end, larger homes. Speaking of higher end listings, I actually do have currently 2 listed in this neighborhood, both for north of 5 million. We're gonna show you the B-roll of what those each individually look like. And they also are a pretty fair representative of what you'd expect to find in the neighborhood. The first of which was built back in the 1950s, back when actually, believe it or not, all of this was like pastures and they used to ride horses all throughout with trails going into Tryon Creek State Park. But since then, things have changed and the neighborhood has developed quite a bit with builders partitioning off some of the larger parcels. Actually, that original listing I have is named the Shaw House, and it was part of a much larger parcel that was developed into the 2015 Street of Dreams, where they carved up that property, remodeled the original house, the one I have listed, and then built 8 brand new houses in that development, opened it to the public and showcased pretty much to everyone in the Portland metro area some of the best in terms of Lake Oswego property, and then of course the local builders. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I have another $5+ million listing. It's the ultimate family compound, very private, secluded, on over 1.5 acres back into green space. That one has a pool house, and over 9,000 square feet. So if you need a home that's 6+ bedrooms with multi-generational living options, that is a great option. As you can imagine, the neighborhood too has seen its fair share of infill development, more so on the custom build side up here rather than the speculative side, which we see a lot of down in First Edition and Evergreen. You have a custom home builder behind me that secured that lot for a custom client. So you'll see probably a nice large new home go in very soon over there. One of the things that makes this neighborhood desirable, which you are probably noticing, is just the sheer amount of sunshine. There aren't as many big tall fir trees up here on top of the hill since this all used to be horse pastures. So if you're looking for a neighborhood with a ton of natural light, this is definitely one to consider. Proximity wise, we are located right in the heart of Lake Oswego on the north side of the lake, next to Lake Oswego High School, which of course this feeds into. From an elementary school perspective, it's also close by Forest Hills, which is just down Atwater, and close into downtown Lake Oswego. You also have easy access to I-5 on the backside via Terwilliger, making this a uniquely accessible location for how private and expansive this neighborhood feels. And of course, with the larger lot sizes up here, properties can tend to be more expensive. There's currently 12 active listings, 2 pendings, and a total of 27 sales over the last 12 months. Now, average sale price in the neighborhood is the highest we've seen at nearly $1.9 million. On the flip side, you have a lot of larger homes. What does that mean? It means a lower price per foot, so your money does go a little bit farther. Of those 27 sales, the average price per foot was approximately $465. Now, you can find more affordable options in the neighborhood. Those tend to be those tear down properties. The lowest price property over the last 12 months to sell was $635,000, though most lots that would be ideal for building end up trading for roughly $800,000 to $1.2 million. For those of you interested in potentially building right now in Lake Oswego, we're probably seeing an average of $500 price per foot to build a larger quality custom home, though the sky is the limit in terms of what you can actually spend. But the great thing is the neighborhood can support those values. For example, we sold a listing earlier this year for $5.5 million at just over $1,000 price per foot, which was a record in Lake Oswego on an off-lake property for a highly custom home. So if you are looking for a higher quality estate-like home with some privacy, sun exposure, and close proximity to everything good there is in Lake Oswego, then this might very well be your top choice in terms of neighborhood. All right, so that wraps up today's tour of my top 5 neighborhoods. I just want to say again, if there is a house that comes up in a different neighborhood, don't rule it out just because I said so. Reach out, ask me about that neighborhood, because there are tons of great options here in Lake Oswego, not just the top 5 that I outlined today. And of course, if you want to get in touch, the best way to do that is the link to my calendar in the description below. I also have a free Lake Oswego moving guide, so make sure to check that out and subscribe to our newsletter for the best deals every single week here in Lake Oswego. So thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next video.